Painters didn't always have pigments for each color. Throughout history, the range of colors was limited by the availability of pigments. It was only towards the end of the 19th century, with industrialization and improved manufacturing techniques, that vivid greens and purples became more readily available to artists. My style of painting follows a resurgence in the love of painting outdoors that was first exemplified by the 19th century Impressionists. Connecting directly with nature, capturing the natural light and range of colors we find in the landscape, and using the pigments available to us to describe our environment. At this point, the artist needs to draw from another layer of knowledge and understanding of color mixing theory. The three primary colors cannot be obtained by mixing any other colors together. Those are red, yellow, and blue. By mixing two primary colors together results in secondary colors, orange, purple, and green. These basic principles of color theory are the first things we learn in our color journey as artists, and all too often our journey stops shortly thereafter. However, if we are to successfully interpret the scene that we observe, with all the subtleties of local color and the external influences, we must develop a more sophisticated understanding of our artist's tools. When we look at a paint color from a tube, we are seeing a combination of certain properties including hue, temperature, value, and chroma. Each of these properties influences my choice of pigment for painting. Over the years, I have settled upon a palette that suits how I use paint pigments to capture a scene. Hue is probably the most obvious property, as it tells us the dominant color. For example, ultramarine blue, cadmium red, etc. Value indicates the position where the paint falls on the grayscale, like keys on a piano, and can typically be assigned a number between 1, white, and 10, black. The artist should understand the values of each element in their scene in order to create the correct paint effect on their surface. Even a monochromatic study can accurately depict a scene if the underlying values are correct. Value is a vital component of a successful painting and is perhaps the most important of all the elements of design. You can see that a grayscale image of my palette reveals the value of each paint pigment, and then I lay my paints out in order from lightest to darkest. By laying your palette out in this manner, you are setting yourself up for success in your painting. There are two levels of understanding when it comes to a paint's temperature. One is relative to other colors, and the second is relative to pigments of the same color. In order to determine the temperature of a paint, it can be compared to other colors on the spectrum. Understanding the direction that a pigment leans towards on the color wheel allows the artist to control the intensity of their color mixtures. Cadmium red is warm relative to alizarin crimson because the cadmium color contains yellow and alizarin contains blue. The overall effect is to create a warm red and a cool red. Cadmium yellow is warm relative to lemon yellow because the cadmium yellow contains orange and the lemon yellow contains green. The overall effect is to create a warm yellow and a cool yellow. Ultramarine blue is warm relative to cobalt blue because ultramarine contains red and cobalt contains green. These lesser colors have the effect of creating a warm blue and a cool blue. Viridian is a very cool green that leans more towards blue than yellow. Chroma is the intensity or saturation of the color. Straight out of the tube, the paint color will be at its highest chroma level. Once you start to mix paints, the chroma becomes less saturated. To create a vibrant and intense secondary color, mix two primaries that lean towards each other on the color wheel. To create a more muted and less saturated secondary color, mix primaries that have the complementary color present in their pigment. If I want to create a variety of greens, it is useful for me to understand that mixing a yellow and a blue that both leans towards the complement of green, red, will result in a dull green. The reason for this is the presence of the third primary color, red, in both the yellow and blue pigments. If I want to create a brighter green, I will use blue and yellow pigments that lean towards each other on the color wheel, without the presence of red. In these pigments, to dull down the mixture, the green will be more pure and bright. Occasionally, I will want to mix a truly vibrant green, such as the wonderful green fields in Ireland or the Pacific Northwest. Combining viridian with a cool yellow creates a very intense green. If I want to create a brighter, more intense violet, I will use blue and red pigments that lean towards each other on the color wheel. Without the presence of yellow in these pigments to dull down the mixture, the violet will be more pure and bright. If I want to mix sensitive violets, it is useful for me to understand that mixing a red and a blue that both leans towards the complement of violet, like yellow, will result in a dull violet. The reason for this is the presence of the third primary color, yellow, in both the red and blue pigments. Occasionally, nature provides us with extremely muted violets, and to achieve this color, I would substitute burnt sienna as my red mixture. Another option for the artist is to restrict their palette to only 3 or 4 colors. I find that deliberately selecting a palette beforehand is an interesting challenge and a good practice for mixing color and establishing accurate values. In this painting, I chose to limit my palette to just 3 paints plus white: yellow ochre, burnt sienna, ivory black, and titanium white. The old masters had very limited palettes, and this forced them to be very inventive color mixers. They had to develop a strong sensitivity to color. Subtleties of grays are a whole other level of sophistication in a painting. In order to master something, we have to learn it, see it, and then practice it. Only then do we own it.